Jacob Smith. The rise in mass shootings in the United States has become a problem in recent years that has put a new light on gun control. According to BBC News, who used information from Gun Violence Archive, 13,286 people were killed in the U.S. by firearms in 2015, and 26,819 people were injured. Over the years, the numbers are increasing of people in the United States that are dying from firearms, and there needs to be more laws passed to put a stop to the increasing numbers of deaths. Compared to other countries that spread across the world with larger populations, the U.S. has a much larger percent of deaths caused by guns. In an article in BBC News, it states that homicide rates is larger in the U.S. than in Canada, Australia, and UK regarding death by guns. The United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, or UNODC, says that the number of gun murders per capita in the U.S. in 2012 was nearly 30 times that in the UK, at 2.9 per 100,000 compared with just 0.1. Even though these numbers are from 5 years ago, it still goes to show that the U.S. has a much larger gun threat than that in the UK. UNODC also states that all the murders in the U.S. in 2012, 60% were by guns, compared with 31% in Canada, 18.2% in Australia, and just 10% in the UK. And in this visual aid, it shows the 60% for the United States. These numbers show that guns are involved in more than half of the murders taking place, but the numbers also show that the amount of deaths in the U.S. from firearms is more than the amount of deaths in the U.S. has had from war. PolitiFact shows that there has been 1.4 million deaths from firearms in the U.S. compared to the 1.2 million deaths from every war since the War of Independence to the Iraq War. With all these deaths occurring due to firearms, that must mean there is a large amount of guns in the U.S. Another article from BBC News says that there are thought to be about 300 million guns in the U.S., and all the guns are only held by a third of the population. This is almost enough weapons to supply each American with one. Regarding the guns being used in these homicides, BBC News has another article saying a few states in the U.S. have banned assault weapons, which were totally restricted for a decade until 2004. However, most murders are caused by guns involving handguns, according to FBI data. And my next visual aid shows the guns used in murders in the U.S. percentage. Even though military-style assault weapons have been blamed for some of the major mass shootings, such as the attack in Orlando nightclub and a Sandy Hook school in Connecticut, the ban of assault rifles was still disregarded. With all the guns owned in the United States and the amount of deaths that have taken place because of them, there has to be some laws regarding weapons. Some of the laws placed according to National Rifle Association, or the NRA. In Iowa, you need a permit to purchase a handgun, but not a rifle, and you must have a permit to carry a handgun, but no permit to carry a rifle. They also say that the state law prohibits the possession of a machine gun and suppressors by private parties. Suppressors may, however, be possessed and used by a person solely for the purpose of shooting a deer in an improved city special deer population control plan if the person has a valid federal permit to possess the suppressor. Even though there are some laws now, there are more laws trying to get done to protect the U.S. citizens. An article on the website The Atlantic says that some precautions trying to be implemented are background checks for all guns sales, an assault weapons ban, a 10-round maximum for magazines, a strict enforcement of laws against straw purchasers. For guns, a straw purchaser is someone who buys a gun for someone who is unable to buy it themselves due to being prohibited by law. A website called American Progress also says that there needs to be better background checks, taking military-grade weapons off the streets and out of criminals' hands, better data, better coordination, and better enforcement for gun control. There are many people trying to create ways to keep people safer with gun control and adding more regulations to purchases. The U.S. has a much higher percentage of deaths due to firearms compared to the UK, Australia, and Canada, which are three major countries. There is almost enough guns in circulation in the U.S. for each person to have their own weapon, and with all these only being held by a third of the entire population. There are many laws that have already been taken and that are trying to be implemented to put a control on the mass amount of guns. It would be extremely hard to take away everyone's guns that they have already purchased in the US to completely get rid of them. It is clear that there is a problem with guns with all the numbers shown in such high death rate from weapons. What can be done is doing more thorough background checks, as well as making sure there is regulations on how much can be purchased to try and make America a safer place. And then my last visual aid shows the mass shootings in the US since 1991.